My name's Everett. And the night the wind changed, I stopped being the man who chased storms. I had no plans of writing this down, but lately, the silence in my house has been too loud to ignore. Maybe by telling it, I can finally leave it behind me. It happened quietly. That's the part no one warns you about. Betrayal doesn't crash into your life like a freight train. It sneaks in like a whisper, a draft through a cracked window you forgot to close. Lana, my wife, used to be sunlight. Not warm, not soft, blinding. She filled every room without asking permission. That's part of what drew me in. She wasn't delicate. She was a wildfire in denim jeans and old rock band tees. The first girl who ever beat me at darts and kissed me before I even asked. For years, we danced between chaos and comfort. I thought that was just who we were. But somewhere along the line, Lana stopped looking at me like I was part of the adventure and started looking past me, like I was scenery. The night it all shifted, I stood in our kitchen holding a chipped mug she once said reminded her of home. She breezed in late, smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. Her smile was too polished, too practiced. She barely looked at me before tossing her purse onto the counter. Long night? I asked, more out of habit than anything else. She shrugged. Depends who you ask. There was a chill in her voice that didn't match the warm air outside. I watched her pull out her phone and laugh at something on the screen, a laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I realized then, Lana wasn't just slipping away. She had already left. She was just dragging her body through the motions. Still, like a fool, I tried. I reached out. I planned weekends away. I suggested counseling. I begged in 100 quiet ways without ever using the word please. And Lana? She wanted more. She wanted me to fall to my knees. She wanted me to grovel, to lose the last thread of dignity I still had just to be worthy of her half-hearted affection. But standing there, gripping that stupid chipped mug, something inside me shifted. If she wanted me to beg, she was about to learn what it felt like when the begging stopped. She would see what it's like to be completely invisible to someone who once adored her. And so, without raising my voice, without slamming a door, without shedding a single tear, I simply stopped reaching for her. The first move wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Real endings rarely are. For days after that night, I became a ghost in my own home. Not bitter, not dramatic, just absent. I moved through the house like she wasn't even there. I answered her questions with quiet indifference. I stopped asking about her day, stopped offering to cook, stopped suggesting anything. And for a while, Lana seemed almost relieved. She took my distance as permission to keep doing whatever she was doing out there in her other life. But what she didn't realize was that ignoring her wasn't just a reaction, it was my decision. A cold, deliberate one. I wasn't punishing her. I was setting myself free. I started noticing things I had ignored before. New jewelry she never bothered to explain. Secretive texts she answered only when she thought I wasn't looking. Whispers in the bathroom when she thought I was asleep. And always that phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. The more I noticed, the less I felt. The love I once fought for felt like an old photograph now, a memory I could look at without feeling anything at all. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need an apology. I needed out. One evening, Lana decided to test the waters. She sauntered into the living room wearing the same dress she wore on our second anniversary. It used to stop my heart when I saw her in it. Now, it just looked like a costume. She stood in front of the TV and smiled that too bright smile. Going out with the girls, she chirped. Don't wait up. I nodded without looking up. Do what you want. The flash of confusion on her face almost made me laugh. Almost. She lingered in the doorway for a second longer than necessary, as if waiting for me to protest, to question her, to beg her not to go. But I didn't even flinch. I simply turned the volume up and let her walk away. I spent that night sitting outside under the stars, sipping a beer and feeling more at peace than I had in months. It was strange. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't scared. I was just done. And somewhere deep inside, I knew Lana could feel it too. She might have thought she wanted me to chase her forever, but she never prepared for what it would feel like when the chasing stopped, when the man who once saw her as his whole world now saw her as just another passerby. And that was just the beginning. The funny thing about silence is that at first, people think it's a gift. Freedom to do whatever they want without consequence. But silence grows heavy with time. It lingers, it suffocates. And soon enough, it becomes unbearable. Lana didn't notice it right away. She floated around like everything was perfectly fine. Coming home later. Laughing too loudly into her phone. Dressing up for people who weren't me. If she noticed that I stopped noticing her, She didn't show it. At least, not at first. But cracks started to form faster than I expected. It began with the little things. She started leaving the bedroom door slightly open at night, almost like she wanted me to check on her. She cooked dinner once, a rare event, and acted surprised when I said I wasn't hungry. She even suggested we have a talk one Saturday morning, the first real invitation to a conversation in months. I simply told her, nothing to talk about, and grabbed my keys. The look in her eyes wasn't anger. It was panic. She thought she had me trapped, dancing around for her approval like some desperate fool. But when I stopped playing, she realized she was the one caged inside the game she'd built. Every smile she faked, every flirtatious toss of her hair, every meaningless apology crafted to pull me back, they all bounced off me like rubber bullets. The best part? I never raised my voice. Never accused her. Never played the detective demanding evidence. I didn't need to. Lana's own guilt was a much better weapon than anything I could have said. And day by day, she carried it around heavier and heavier, until it bent her shoulders and dulled her sparkle. I could tell it drove her crazy not knowing what I knew. She'd watch me carefully when she thought I wasn't paying attention, searching my face for signs. Was I suspicious? Did I know about the late-night meetups, the hushed calls from the bathroom, the way she clung to her phone like a secret lover? Of course I knew. I knew more than she could imagine. And I wasn't just going to confront her. That would have given her the drama she secretly craved. No. I was going to let her stew in the slow, suffocating realization that she had lost me, not with a bang, but with a whisper. She wanted me to beg. Instead, she was about to learn how loud true indifference could be. Because sometimes the most brutal revenge isn't yelling or accusations or catching them in the act. Sometimes the real pain comes when they realize they've become completely irrelevant to the one person who once would have crossed fire for them. And I was just getting started. By the third week, Lana's walls were crumbling faster than even I expected. She started picking fights over absolutely nothing. I'd leave a cup on the counter, and she'd launch into some rant about how I didn't respect the home she worked so hard to maintain. Meanwhile, I just nodded, picked up the cup, and kept moving without a word. The quieter I became, the louder she got. She started dressing up even more, almost ridiculously. Short skirts she wouldn't have been caught dead in 2 years ago. Heels too high for the grocery store. Hair curled perfectly for a quick errand run. It would have been funny if it hadn't been so pathetic. And then came the accidental slips, the ones she probably thought would bait me into reacting. Once, she left her phone on the coffee table while she showered, screen flashing with a text from Max. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to do it again. I saw it. I read it. And I did absolutely nothing. When she came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, pretending not to notice the phone blinking like a siren, I just smiled politely, nodded at her, and walked upstairs. She must have checked that phone 10 times in the next 5 minutes, her breathing sharper each time. Waiting for me to blow up. Waiting for the confrontation. It never came. Because by then, Lana wasn't my wife anymore. Not really. She was just a stranger renting space in my home. And strangers don't get the satisfaction of knowing they hurt you. Days blurred into one another. She tried being extra sweet. Then cold again. Then guilty. Then angry. I watched her cycle through every emotional trick in her book. Every desperate move designed to yank a reaction out of me. Still, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because I was done playing her game. The harder she tried to pull me back into her orbit, the more obvious it became she needed me to care. She needed me to still be the man who would fall apart at the thought of losing her. But the truth was brutal. Lana had already lost me the moment she chose someone else. She just hadn't realized it yet. And the scariest thing for her wasn't losing me, it was facing the fact that she was no longer worth chasing. The irony burned so perfectly. She spent all that time trying to prove she could do better. Now she was begging for crumbs of my attention and getting nothing but polite silence in return. And somehow, I knew. The real collapse was still coming. I just had to be patient. The night everything finally broke was colder than it should have been for late spring. I remember sitting on the porch, nursing a beer, staring out into the quiet street lined with empty driveways and sleeping houses. Inside, Lana was pacing like a caged animal. I could hear the floor creak under her restless footsteps, could feel her anxiety pulsing through the walls like static. She tried a new tactic that night, one she hadn't used since the early days of our marriage: vulnerability. She came out onto the porch in one of my old hoodies, her face stripped of makeup, her eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. Maybe she had. "Everett," she said, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Can we talk?" I didn't move at first. Just took another sip, let the silence stretch long enough to remind her that she didn't get to summon me like a dog anymore. Finally, I said, "Go ahead." She sat on the steps, hugging her knees like the girl I once fell in love with, but it didn't hit me the way she hoped. It didn't crack me open or make me ache for her. It just made me sad, in the detached way you feel when you walk through a house you used to live in and realize you don't belong there anymore. "I know I've been distant," she started, fumbling for words. "And I know you're angry. I don't know what's happening to us." It was almost impressive, really. Even now, she couldn't bring herself to admit it. No apology. No confession. Just vague words tossed into the night air, hoping I would meet her halfway and save her from drowning. But I wasn't there to throw her a life vest anymore. I shrugged. Maybe we just grew apart. She blinked fast, as if my calm acceptance was more painful than any screaming match she might have prepared for. "I don't want to lose you," she said suddenly, voice cracking, hands twisting in the sleeves of my hoodie. "I know I've made mistakes, but we can fix this, right?" The old me would have grabbed that lifeline with both hands, desperate to believe in fairy tale fixes. But the man sitting on that porch wasn't the same one she betrayed. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized there was nothing left between us worth saving. Whatever love we had once built had been bulldozed by lies and selfishness. "You can't fix something you smashed on purpose," I said quietly. "You can try to tape the pieces back together, sure, but it'll never be whole again." Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. And for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the text from Max. The sneaky nights out. The way she laughed about me behind my back. No, she didn't deserve my pity. She deserved the silence she had earned. Without another word, I stood up, dropped the empty bottle into the trash, and went inside, leaving her sitting there alone under the cold, uncaring stars. That night, Lana slept on the couch, and I slept better than I had in months. Morning came gray and heavy, like the world itself had shifted under the weight of everything unsaid. I woke up feeling lighter, almost foreign in my own skin. The kind of peace you only get after walking through fire and making it out the other side without carrying the ashes. When I came downstairs, Lana was curled up on the couch, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. Her hair was a tangled mess, makeup smeared under her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she didn't look like the unreachable goddess she had pretended to be. She looked human, flawed, lost. She didn't say a word as I moved past her. No accusations. No pleas. Just silence, the same silence she had taught me to live with. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat at the table, and scrolled through my phone like it was just another day. I didn't ask if she was okay. I didn't ask where she had been the night before or who she had been texting at 2 a.m. Those questions were anchors, and I had already cut myself free. Eventually, she stumbled into the kitchen, still wearing my hoodie like some desperate shield. She fiddled with the hem, avoiding my eyes. I could feel her gathering the nerve for something, some final attempt to claw her way back into the version of my life where she mattered. "Maybe we could, you know." She started, her voice cracking, "Start over." I set my coffee down carefully, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. Start over? As if she hadn't burned the bridge and salted the earth beneath it? Start over with who? Lana? I asked, my voice even. The woman who laughed about me behind my back? The one who thought I was too stupid to notice? She flinched, and for once, she didn't try to deny it. She didn't even try to lie. She just stood there, silent, guilty, broken in a way no apology could fix. "You made your choice," I said, standing up and grabbing my keys from the counter. "Now you get to live with it." I left before she could respond. Drove with no destination in mind, just the open road and a heavy kind of freedom pressing against my chest. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was reclaiming the parts of myself I had given away piece by piece, thinking love meant sacrifice without limits. By the time I pulled into the old hiking trail we used to visit in better days, the sun had broken through the clouds. It warmed my face as I stepped out of the car and breathed in the clean, sharp air. It hit me then. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't broken. I was just free. And back at the house, Lana was left with the only thing she truly feared, herself. Because at the end of it all, the worst punishment wasn't losing me. It was realizing she had destroyed the one person who had loved her without conditions, and there was no one left to blame but herself. The days that followed settled into a strange rhythm, not normal, but eerily quiet, like the calm after a hurricane tears through a town and all that's left are broken windows and empty streets. I didn't tell Lana to leave. I didn't scream at her to pack her things. I didn't need to. She was living in the ruins she had created, and every day that passed, the silence between us grew wider, colder, more permanent. She still tried, in her own clumsy, too-late way. She started making dinners again, setting the table like it was 5 years ago, and we were still in love. She bought stupid little gifts, a new coffee mug, a hoodie from my favorite old band, and left them on the kitchen counter without a note. She even suggested we take a trip together, somewhere quiet, just us. Her voice cracked every time she tried to sound casual. But it was all dust in my hands. Too little, too late. I responded with the same polite distance I reserved for strangers at a gas station. A nod. A short answer. A look that said, I see you, but you don't matter anymore. And it was killing her. I could see it every time she flinched at my indifference, every time her hand hovered near mine at the table only for me to casually move away. Every time I laughed at something on my phone and didn't bother to explain what it was. Every time I got home later than usual without offering an explanation. This was the part she never expected, the part where she became invisible to the man who once moved mountains just to make her smile. Late one night, I heard her crying in the bedroom. Loud, messy sobs that shook the walls. She wasn't trying to hide it anymore. Maybe she thought it would pull me back, the way it used to, the broken girl routine that once made me wrap my arms around her and swear I'd fix whatever was wrong. But this time, I didn't move. I stayed downstairs, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, letting her grief echo unanswered. Because this wasn't about fixing things anymore. This was about accepting the truth, that some betrayals don't leave scars, they amputate. And no amount of apology or desperation could sew back the parts she had willingly cut away. At some point, her crying stopped. I didn't hear her come downstairs. Didn't hear her move around. When I finally looked up, the house felt emptier than it ever had. She was still here physically, but in every way that mattered, Lana was already gone. And somehow, I was completely fine with that. For the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't waiting for her to change. I wasn't hoping she would wake up one day and realize what she had thrown away. I had changed, and there was no going back. 2 weeks after that night of silence, I came home from work and found Lana standing in the kitchen with a suitcase by her side. She wasn't crying this time. She wasn't shouting, blaming, pleading. She just stood there with that old hoodie draped over her shoulders, staring at the floor like it might swallow her whole. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while, she said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, setting my keys on the table. Okay. No dramatic goodbyes. No final argument. No desperate last attempt to glue together what we both knew was already dust. She hesitated by the door for a moment, maybe expecting me to ask her to stay. Maybe hoping. But when I said nothing, she gave a weak smile, the kind people give when they're trying to pretend it's not goodbye, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and just like that, it was over. I stood there for a long time after she left, feeling the silence wrap around me like a warm, heavy blanket. No tension. No hidden knives. No waiting for the next betrayal. Just peace. Real peace. I spent the next few weeks rebuilding my life, not out of revenge or bitterness, but out of genuine hope. I started running again, something I hadn't done in years. I reconnected with old friends who used to complain I disappeared after getting married. I started hiking on weekends, sometimes alone, sometimes with people who valued laughter more than lies. Slowly, the house began to feel different. Lighter. Warmer. Not haunted by what I had lost, but filled with the possibilities of what could come next. One Saturday afternoon, while wandering through the farmer's market downtown, I bumped, literally, into someone. A woman around my age, carrying way too many bags and laughing at herself. Sorry, she said, grinning, juggling a basket of apples. I laughed too, really laughed, for the first time in a long time. We got coffee. We talked about everything and nothing. Her name was June. She wasn't flashy or cold or playing games. She was just real, and being around her felt like breathing after years underwater. I didn't rush anything. I wasn't looking for a replacement or trying to fill a void. I was just living again. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, happiness crept back in. Not the fireworks and grand declarations kind. The quiet kind. The solid kind. The kind that feels like coming home to yourself. Looking back now, I don't hate Lana. I don't wish her misery. I just hope that someday she finds whatever it was she was looking for, without tearing someone else apart to get it. As for me, I'm good. Better than good. Because in losing her, I found the one thing I didn't even know I had lost. Myself.